Look at this beauty all around you. It's so incredible. You're looking at the beautiful fall colors and the beautiful flowers. And look at this. Friends, today I am coming to you from Meadowlark Gardens Park in Vienna, Virginia. And we are filming here to continue our relationship series. And as you can see behind me, that this is so beautiful. I'm at this park for inspiration and to talk to you guys about our next topic in the relationship series. And that topic is, what was the first moment that you remember that you had that ouch in your love relationships or your romantic relationships? And remember, we're talking about getting the love you want, so we're talking about romantic relationships in this vlog. And I'm just going to be walking through this beautiful gardens, and as you can see, there's a lot of kids here actually. There's a lot of kids rolling down the hill. It's kind of cute and sweet. So as we're walking through these gardens, we're going to focus a lot on what was that first moment that you remember. So in the last video, if you remember, what we were doing is we were focusing on what made you fall in love with your loved one, with your romantic partner. You remember the moment, I know you do. It was that moment that you couldn't live without that person, or you wanted to talk to them all the time, or maybe you did. Maybe you stayed up all night talking to them, and you just wanted to see them all the time. You really didn't want to work. You didn't want to do anything else. All you wanted to do was talk to this person. And then there came a moment at which you realized, maybe this person has some flaws. Now they say love is blind, and love most certainly can be blind. And as you see, I'm just turning this around so you can see the beautiful scenery behind me. And there's a little lake behind there as well, and you can see that. So they say that love is blind, and it's interesting because even in the book, Dr. Harville Hendrix talks about how we have a sense of denial in that first part of relationship, that we just feel totally enamored with this person and all we see is their positive traits. But lying underneath the surface are some of those negative traits, or those traits that we seek out in them in order to heal that within us that we have either suppressed or our repressed traits, or our, I like to say, the shadow side of us. All of us have a shadow side, or there are traits within us that we absolutely deny, that we forgot that we even have, or we don't want to see that shadow side to us. I'm just letting you see this side. You can see this a little bit more. See that beautiful lake here? And the change of light is because I'm walking through the trees, and since it's fall, the leaves haven't totally fallen off the trees yet. And many, because it's been so warm here, I'm in Virginia, so because it's been so warm, a lot of the leaves haven't even changed color yet. And things are still quite green, as you can see. If I wrap around this way, you can see that things are pretty green still. So once you realize these negative traits in your loved one, then you begin to make your lists. Then you begin to go, uh-oh, I don't know if I can make this relationship work. I don't know if I want to be with this person. This person has some of the negative traits that the last person had. And you might even be saying to yourself, why do I keep picking a person who is similar to the last person? Why is there a pattern here? In the book, Dr. Hendrix talks about why we unconsciously choose people that have similar positives and negatives. They might not have exactly the same, but they do tend to be very similar in nature. And the reason for that is, I'll explain it a little more in the next video, but the reason for that is that unconsciously we're really wanting to work through some of these wounds from our past. We want to work through these hurts, these sorrows. Things have been truly bothering us throughout life, and things that have been tugging at our heart to really fix. And it may have been abandonment from a parent, or a parent that was just absent most of the time, or maybe overworking, or your parents got divorced and that parent was just out of the picture, and so that left you with a sense of abandonment. Sometimes, as he explains, is that we might choose a partner, for example, that is a workaholic and that works too much, and we still feel that sense of abandonment. So it can be something as simple as that, but it's also really complex, because for the same reasons that you find the negativity or the negative aspects of this person, you also find the positive aspects. And so it's this juggling act of, how can I deal with these negative aspects all the while enjoying the positive aspects? So all of a sudden the person seems that they're not so perfect anymore, and they kind of fall off of that pedestal for you. And in fact, we do this. We tend to put our loved one on top of a pedestal, and we look at them as our savior, if you will. And even it was really funny, because early on in my romantic relationship, the most current one, he even said to me, "You are my savior." And I thought, wow, that's a really tall order to fill. And we're Christian, and I told him, well, no, Jesus is your savior. I'm not your savior. But he really felt that I might be the person to help solve his problems and issues. And at the same time, we look to that person as our savior. We look to that person as, okay, this is the person. I finally found the person that's going to help me live a better life and help heal these wounds of childhood unconsciously, right? Some of it's consciously, but for the most part, it's unconscious. Something just jumped into the water there. I think there's a big fish over there. So most of this is unconscious. We have this person that we fell in love with on a pedestal, and they're so high on the pedestal, just like your parents. Do you remember, if you can look back to how there was probably one or both parents, but it's usually one more than the other, one parent that you really put on a pedestal, and it was probably the more emotionally distant parent. It was a parent that you really looked up to. So I know for me it was my dad, where I put my dad a little bit up on a pedestal, and I thought he could really do no wrong. And then once you did that, then there was a day that you realized that your parent was actually human, and they had flaws, and they made mistakes. And it was really a huge disappointment for you, wasn't it? It was a huge letdown. It was like, oh my God, this person that I really wanted to be my savior, the perfect person, all of a sudden they came down from that pedestal, and it left you really like angry and upset and a little bit disappointed, and probably like disenchanted with all of humanity. We come to this point in our relationships where we realize, okay, this person has flaws. This person's not a perfect person, and they are not up on that pedestal anymore. They may have fallen really from that pedestal faster than we even thought was even possible. And then we're left with this sense of disappointment, just like when you had put one of your parents on a pedestal and then you realize that they were actually human. It brings about a sense of loss, it brings about a sense of disappointment, and it brings about a sense of incompleteness. Because in fact, what the book explains again, I'm talking about Getting the Love You Want, that book. We're starting to get into Imago therapy and the roots of Imago therapy, and usually a philosophy or a psychology of a certain thing, in this case relationships, starts with a basis. So in these first few videos, I'm actually giving you the basis for the philosophy of Imago therapy. And the basis is, we pick this person unconsciously that has positive and negative traits of our caretakers. The caretakers can be anyone who raised us. And we unconsciously choose this person in order to help heal the wounds of our childhood. In the second video, I spoke about what made you first fall in love with your loved one, the person that you consider to be your romantic partner. And then in this video, we're talking about what was that ouch moment? So what was that moment that led you to think like, oh my God, this person is not perfect? Like I said, you can feel disenchanted or fooled because you really, really thought that this was the one, this was the person, this was the perfect person. And you guys were gonna ride off into the sunset and live happily ever after. When in reality, you just had on some blinders. And those blinders didn't allow you to see the flaws in the first month, 2 months, 6 months, or maybe the first year. And then when you awoke, from your slumber, when you awoke to realize, hey, this person is not perfect, then you really focus more on the negative traits or the negative issues rather than focusing more on the positive issues. And that's probably what led you to this, to this video series. So it's important that you recognize that those negative traits were there all along. It's just that you didn't notice those negative traits. And those negative traits are it's actually good that you noticed those negative traits because it represents a part of yourself that you have not yet healed. And so it's super important that you just take a look at it. It's not the other person entirely. It's you and you. So this is about your healing journey into healing those traits that have been ailing you for many years, probably starting since childhood. A good exercise for today would be to go ahead and list those negative traits of your partner, your romantic partner. You've already listed the positive traits. We're now going to list the negative traits and have a look also at what negative traits are similar to some of your caretakers. Now again, caretakers, mom, dad, nanny, stepmom, stepdad, aunt, grandma, whoever your caretakers were. It could have been an older sibling. But take a look at those negative traits and look at where are the similarities with one or more of my caretakers. I already mentioned abandonment. If your caretaker had abandoned you in some way in your childhood, look at how that abandonment comes through in your romantic relationship. And it could be anything. It could have to do with trust, honesty, or dishonesty. It could have to do with providing for you, having a sense of stability, or making money so that you feel that you have a solid home to stay in, you have food on the table. It could mean that you had a parent that was overbearing or controlling, and now you're finding that your partner is overbearing and controlling. So just list those similarities and then meet me in the next video, and we're going to talk about how your partner is a wounded child. Thanks so much for joining me. Please subscribe to my channel, share this video with other people, support me on Patreon, and I will see you in the next video.